Hi, I'm Ron Bronson. When Poppy said we started at XDA, here's how it went. I said, hey, I emailed the XDA. We have a chapter. We're going to do it. You live in Indy. I live in Bloomington. You're going to do it. It's going to be great. And then she did it, and she killed it. And look at all of you here. So shout out to Poppy. This is my talk about clearing caches. What? You're trying to pull up my slides. I'm going to talk about cookies. A little bit about me. What do I do? So I do experience design at the federal government's digital agency called 18F. Google it. You should come work there. We need more Midwesterners. Although I'm not going to be here much longer. But anyway, not there in the Midwest. What else do I do? I used to work for the city of Bloomington doing, we did their website redesign last year. Spent about a decade working in different areas of the digital space. Yeah. You can Google me, ronbronson.com. Who cares? I speak at conferences all over the country and in other countries too. What am I supposed to do with this? Really, it's a mouse? Like legit a mouse? So I'm just going to do this, right? Wow. Totes amazing. No, it's cool. Whatever. Don't worry about it. It's cool. So this talk is pretty broad, but we're going to talk about, this is sort of a condensed version of a talk I gave a couple years ago, about products and building things. How many of you folks in here are sort of in the UX space generally? Many of you are like designers generally. How many of you want to be these things? Spoiler alert, you already are. So I want you to think a little bit about what motivates you and what motivates the things you build, what motivates the things you create, and about what inspires those things. The genesis of this talk was really based on, you can't see this, but just roll with it. It's a back of a Cheerios box. I tweeted a couple years ago. I was looking at the back of a box, and it's a Cheerios box, and it says, "This is Phil. Phil worked for Cheerios for 30 years, and turns out his granddaughter had celiac disease. We figured out, how can we make Cheerios gluten-free for Fred's granddaughter?" And I thought, what a cool story. I'm celiac. And then I thought about it. What if there was no Phil? Every day in your organizations, you make decisions, you make choices, you make opportunities based on perspectives that you're influenced by, based on things you see, but often it's based on things you don't see. And so I want to talk a little bit today about that. Many of you probably have seen this before. If you have not, it's from a book called Design for the Real World by Victor Papanek. Came out in 1971, I think. Designers love thinking that the problem is everything. It's the whole triangle. If they just let us do everything, it would totally work. Turns out it's actually not true. Our share of the problem is really a small piece of the actual problem. And this isn't just like products or websites or the cool things you're making at your job, or if you like work at a not cool job, the not cool things you're making at your cool job that pays you. You would never admit that it's not cool. So you can laugh now. So talking about, if you guys are going to frown the whole time, this is going to be awful for you. I'm just warning you right now. So I just need call and response the whole time, just for the record. But so talking a little bit about myopia, it's talking about long-range planning. So you lack of long-range planning in how you do things. And so the blinders that impact or inhibit the way that you are able to look at things. There are lots of different times of myopia. I'm not going to read you a quote. You all can read. Designer myopia, it's a really good quote about designer myopia, and thinking about how we as designers are only influenced and only impacted by the parts of the things that matter to us, and why that's not so great. You probably can think about why that's not so great. I'm going to get into an example about that in a second. This actually came from a different talk from something else, but it's still about marketing myopia. My example with marketing myopia is this. Blockbuster didn't die because people stopped using videos. Blockbuster died because of hubris. They're like, we got stores everywhere. Everyone, we're going to win forever. It's Netflix. And if you don't remember this or not, at the time Netflix was killing it, it's just sort of onboarding and sending out DVDs. Blockbuster started their own service. It kind of worked. They just got to the market really late. Why? Hubris. We love to embed our own biases and products to our imagined outcomes. How many times have you been in a meeting or been in a room or building something and you think, the user wants to do this thing this way? Well, surely they want to do it like that. Or we build websites based on our org charts, or build products based on the ways we think people are going to interact with them. And when they complain about it, what do we say often? Well, you just didn't do it right. Let me show you how you're supposed to do it. Here's how that experience should go. Here's how that flow should work. But what if it's not how that flow is supposed to go? What if that experience should be different? And how do we make those decisions? How do we keep that into our perspective? My mother calls me all the time. Like, my best UX research is my mother calling me and being like, hey, so I'm on the ShopRite website. She lives in New Jersey. I'm on the ShopRite website. I'm trying to do these coupons because they said they have coupons. And I can't figure out how to navigate this website. And I have to go to the site and figure out what some goofball thought was a really good idea. None of you work for ShopRite, so I can say that. It's all right. By failing to consider experiences of other people, we just need to we're ignoring the potential to expand our product use cases. And I want to get to a fun example. How many of you play Pokemon Go? You don't want to admit it today. It's cool. I don't play it, but some of you do because you're lying. These guys, like co-working space that I belong to, and they like every day, they're two guys, they work together, and literally they take lunch together to go play Pokemon Go. And I used to give him crap about it. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, it's for my daughter, mate. My daughter likes to play it, so I just go out and get things for her. And I thought it was really cute after that. Anyway, Pokemon Go, what does it have to do with the story? When Pokemon Go launched, blew up. You all remember when it happened. We all know when it happened. If you weren't there, you were living under a rock. Well, the Pokemon Go is a thing that happened. Google it. Well, Pokemon Go was actually built on top of a game called Ingress. Anybody here played Ingress before? Okay, you're my people. Anyway, so Ingress is this like cool, like crazy AR game that like super nerdy people played. And so Ingress happened anyways. They built Pokemon Go on top of Ingress. Here's what happened when they built Pokemon Go on top of Ingress. Turned out, because only certain people played Ingress, when Pokemon Go launched, if you lived in a certain neighborhood, didn't work. There weren't any Pokemons in your neighborhood. Oops, our bad. Now, you're all very thoughtful designers in your own ways, and surely you could think that if you just went down the street, if you tested this before this launched, you could have solved this problem. This is a simple thing. You're talking about $1 billion for a brief moment in time, apparently. It didn't last for long, but apparently Nintendo's market cap grew by something like millions of dollars after this thing launched or something like that. Now, you have this huge product, this happens. You could expand your market by theoretically orders of magnitude. You literally have to walk down the street to fix the problem. And it took, this was in the Chicago Tribune or something like that, it took people being like, oh, we're testing this thing that's really cool and it doesn't work, to realize, oh, we didn't think about that. And that was their answer. Oh, we just didn't know. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't deliberate. We just didn't think about that. Well, why the hell not? But every single day you're doing that. You're embedding those kinds of biases in the things that you build, or adding perspective to the things that you build based on experiences that you've had. But you can do better. You can do more. And how do we do that? You say, well, like, look, I'm just a junior designer. I have this job. I'm just trying to eat. I have a cool apartment, maybe. I have 2 roommates. One of them's messy. You guys are not giving me anything today. Jeez. I know it's like lunchtime, but come on. John Coco wrote an amazing book called Well Design, and he talks about product stance. And I know we talk a lot these days about politics and about how things are not neutral, but this isn't even about that, although hashtag it kind of is. Every product has an attitude, and it takes a stance. And the way you design that product takes a stance. And so if you think about the products you're building, the things you're building, the sites you're building, what is the stance it's taking? Those frustrating experiences you might be building into things. And again, you don't have all the influence or all the control. I know that. But what are the things that we can do? One, we can ask better questions earlier. Imagine the things, if it's meaning showing somebody something, okay, I can't show it to them. You can explain to somebody, I can't explain to them. Think about those perspectives. Ask questions. Go down the street. If you get nothing out of this talk, just walk out and go down the street. Highlight the constraints constructively. Sometimes there are people on your teams or in organizations who need us to spell out the constraints that we're finding because maybe they don't know or they don't understand it. And it doesn't always have to be from a certain perspective, like, black folks can't use this, so you don't want to say that. Okay, don't, although you should. But highlight those constraints, show those constraints, and visualize that in a way that somebody can say, well, we didn't think about that. Maybe we should explore that. Talk about the opportunity cost for why not exploring that hurts what you're doing, because it always comes back to money, right? For better or worse. Speak up sooner. All too often in situations we're in, I have a situation like this recently at work where, there was a situation where it probably would have behooved me not to say anything because politically it wouldn't have been a great idea to say something. But I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. This doesn't quite work. This is just all my experience, all my teaching, everything I've learned up to this moment just makes this feel like the wrong situation. Like a series of wrong situations. It's a two-person team, so you have nobody to gut check you. And I didn't want to say anything because I'm like, how's this going to look? But finally, I'm like, you know what? If I have to go down with the ship on this situation, so be it. Figure out when that happens to you and be willing to do that. Not all the time, but sometimes you have to. And be okay with it because you know what? It worked out, actually. Like, you know what? We didn't hear you at first, but you know what? I'm glad you said something because it turns out you were right. Things were not how they were supposed to be. This doesn't reflect the norms of our organization. We should fix the situation. You can do that too. Communicating the value of design to people who don't understand design can often be difficult. I recognize this fully. But it's your job as designers to figure out how to make that resonate to folks who don't appreciate what we do every day. If it means communicating in their language, so be it, do that. If it means showing artifacts that help people understand the value of the work that we're doing, the touch points that are involved in these things, do that. But you need to figure that out. One, it's going to make you a better designer. Two, it might make you, eventually, when you elevate from where you're at to leadership, makes you a better leader. But ultimately, it makes your products better. Test your own assumptions. We all have a stance. We all have biases. We all have influences. Test those assumptions constantly. Even if you walk in, I've walked in situations and I know what the client needs. I'm like, I know the situation. I've seen this a million times. So what? Do the testing. Do the research. Investigate. Because you may not know. You might be wrong. And be willing to be wrong. Be willing to explore those things. If you think you're right, you're not. Benjamin Evans did this website called perspective.cards, which is really cool. You can Google it. It still exists. And it just talks about who are you missing? And it just goes through different types of personas of folks that you're missing. And it's not like a whole persona. It's just like a quick, brief thing about people that you might, audiences that you might not be keeping in mind. And lastly, show your work. Again, talking about artifacts, the most powerful tool you have, especially you really good visual designers, is being able to show your work, being able to show flow of things, and giving people understanding how everything is connected. And by being able to do that, you can broaden people's horizons, broaden their perspectives, and help your organizations do their work better because too often silos prevent us from really being able to understand how things are connected, how things work, how things flow. So deploy that. And if you're not a designer who does artifacts, do other things, create other kinds of maps, do analog things. It doesn't make a difference. But you have the ability to demonstrate how all these things are connected for people, break it down as low fidelity as you need to, but it's really important for you to do it. I love saying this. I thought I had one more slide, but I do. People don't want to love your product. They want to love chocolate. They want to love their cat. I didn't even get a laugh for that. Y'all are killing me. Jesus, what is going on in Indy today? Anyway, seriously, but it's true. People don't want to love your product. They want it to work. They want it to do what they want it to do. So let them do that. Don't worry about the light. The light is for outside. The light's when I put my phone away. I think that's it. Thank you.
I'm Suraj from IU. So I wanted to talk about how to balance a designer's stance. Like we go with a perspective. Supposedly if we are an activist or we are like I'm bothered about accessibility. How do I balance that in a meeting room?
In the stance. Well, for one, if it's your passion or frankly if it's your expertise, become known for that and always make that a priority. Bake that into your process. Bake that into the way you all do your things at work. So if you've got a whole, if you're agile and you're in an agile shop or whatever else, bake that into your checks, bake that into the process so that you don't forget. So we're not accessibility is not an extra thing. Oh, we deal with that later after we built the whole product. Now we care about accessibility. Heck no. We build that in early. So bake that stance in as early as possible into what you're doing. Repeat that, and then everybody learns it. Because it's not so much folks want to always neglect the stuff you're doing. They just don't know. But if you can model that the first time, the second time, the third time, we start learning that, and then we remember it. And then not only do we learn it on your team, when I'm not working with you on another team, I bring it to another team. Oh, no, we got to do accessibility. I learned this from the other team I was on. We got to do it like this. Where they bring you in and show them how to do that. Be willing to show the folks how to do these things and bake it into their process. Make it modular, build artifacts if you need to, But you bake that into the process, and if you can do that, folks are going to follow you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Sears. Can you talk about the role of more formal user research? I know that you're talking more about keeping an open mind and designing for perspective as a designer, but can you talk about the role of more formal UX research within an organization, within your process?
So we're always doing user testing all the time. So like in my current situation, we were working on a product for Medicaid, and we're building this prototype, software prototype that's only for Medicaid analysts. And we did from February, we didn't even have a prototype at one point, but from February until I rolled off like last week or 2 weeks ago, we did 7 rounds of user testing with internal stakeholders. Something like 4 or 5 different interviews every like 4 or 5 sprints we do user interviews with stakeholders. What do you think now? How do you do it? We have a whole script that we'd write. It's consistent. We do issues off of that. But the beauty of doing that, one, it informed our process. What was great for stakeholders was that they were able to see the iteration that happened along the way, so that their input was involved in it. So it got them excited. We started doing the testing on this product. Folks were like anti. We got a process. We've been doing it a certain way this whole time. We don't want to change it. Why are you trying to build something new? 6 months in, we went to a big conference with all these Medicaid analysts from all over the country, and the number one thing they said they wanted for next year was the thing we were building, because they had gotten involved in the process, they'd seen it, they'd heard about it, and they knew we started their perspectives. But without learning how they were doing things, everything I talked about with flows and like knowing how things work, we would not have learned that. There's no way I can be a Medicaid analyst expert, because I don't do it every day. This is their life. This is what they do. So we had to have those perspectives early and often to be able to navigate how we were going to build this thing for them. So yeah, thank you for asking that. I mean, you're right there, but for the benefit of everybody else.
My name is Brant, and this is actually kind of a related question, but when you're working, I mean, we're in Indianapolis, we have a lot of people who if they're doing user experience work, it's on healthcare related things. If your client has a really good reason, like HIPAA or protecting their IP for not letting you test with their users, how do you manage those specific situations where it's like they have a valid, it's not valid from a UX perspective, but it's valid from their perspective why they won't even let you talk to their users, and they say, we can't test our assumptions, we can't show our work, we can't do any of that. They're literally, for their own good reasons, totally up against your process.
That's tough. And I think a situation like that, this is me knowing nothing other than what you just said, and hearing it, my sense would be that's where it's like build early and often and ship early so that you can get it out to the wild as soon as possible so folks have a chance. The users are then able to use the thing you're doing. So then you're getting the feedback, but you're getting it on the back end rather than on the front end. That would be my first thought, but contextually without like anything else. I mean, I could make things up, but that wouldn't be helpful for anybody else.
Hi, my name is Jason. I was just wondering, in UX and design, is it beneficial, do you think, to learn like any kind of sales techniques, or is that a misguided thing when you're trying to sell the idea of design to non-designers, or or is that a sort of misguided concept?
It's like learning sales skills to be able to sell internally. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think that, I mean, my background is weird, and you can ask me later, but like my background to getting all to this is sort of weird and backward, sort of circuitous. And so I guess that for me, having skills in like things like not necessarily sales directly, but like marketing and other skill sets definitely inform how I approach things like selling internally to stakeholders. So yeah, I don't know that I would say, yeah, go take a sales class. That probably doesn't sound like a great idea necessarily. Like you probably could do other things, but I think learning those tactics, reading a book, would be really useful. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.